Hey everyone, welcome to day 4, tip 4 for getting pregnant and conceiving. It can be for conceiving in general, but specifically for people who, like myself, struggled with infertility and struggled with conceiving and getting pregnant and all of those things. So it's going to be my 10 top tips, so there will be one loaded at a time. So if you haven't watched the previous 3, please go back and watch tip 1, 2 and 3. They are in order for a reason. So if you watch me and you've watched my previous videos, or you've watched me over on Facebook or Instagram, you will know that I talk a lot about building a book and creating a book of you, so that by the end of this book you've got this knowledge of yourself and that you could give it to anybody and say, yeah, ask me any question about myself, about my diagnosis, about my cycles, my ovulation, and I've got it. Or if you think, oh, actually, exactly when did I ovulate last month, you can get your book out and go, right, okay, and you build a book all about yourself. So step 1, tip 1, is always knowledge. It's the number 1 thing I say to people. Number 2 is research. So research why you're taking something, what's in something that's going to affect you. Research your diagnosis. So those 2 chapters come hand in hand, and those are the main 2 chapters. It's what you really need to home in on and what you spend your time on. So that's why I do that first. Tip 3, which was what we did yesterday, was talking a lot about diet generally. So we spoke about what your ideal plate would be made up of, and going on from there really will be today. So today will be tip 4. So we're going to go into food in more detail. So food is something that hugely affects fertility, and a lot of people say, oh, I know a bad diet affects my fertility, or it'll have a negative impact, but then they don't generally know why. They don't know, for example, if they're being told to eat a certain food, what that's doing for them. And then this is what links back to my tip number 1 and 2 and chapter 1 and 2 of your book that you're creating about yourself, your knowledge and your research. So as just a bit of a refresh, we want to remember to try and keep everything as fresh as possible. Try and avoid pre-packaged food, try and avoid as much processed food as possible. On the video that I did yesterday, I spoke a lot about people who say about no fat, no sugar, low sugar. Generally, a lot of the taste then will come from something else, so it will come from an artificial sweetener or additives or something. So generally, if there's something that's still quite tasty but it's advertised as that, then have a look at where else that taste and that flavour is coming from. Also, one of the points that I always point out to people is branding. So things that are branded as like a healthy snack, a healthy alternative, have a look at the ingredients and the calories in there and what the fats are. So what's the trans fat, what's the saturated fat. Really have a look, because a lot of it is branding. And I always use one particular scenario. I had a lady who'd had like a flapjack type of thing, and it was like 1200 calories, but it was branded as like in a health food shop, so you assume it's going to be healthy. For 1200 calories you can have a huge meal. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was how food affects our body. So I followed a study which was really interesting, and it was 2 groups of ladies. One group of ladies were not given breakfast each day for 12 weeks, and the second group of ladies were given breakfast every day for 12 weeks. And at the end of the 12 weeks, the ladies who had breakfast each day not only had increased ovulation levels compared to the ones who didn't, but the quality of the eggs that they produced were much higher. So breakfast is really your starting point. And I'll be honest, it's something I've struggled with because I never used to eat breakfast. So breakfast is really about starting the day right. And I know that there's lots of people who say, who say that, but it is really important, and that's what gets our body going. I also recommend drinking a large glass of water as soon as you get up each day. It rehydrates your body. Your body has been sort of shut down, relaxed, asleep for 6, 10, 12 hours, whatever you sleep for, and then generally the first thing that we put into our body is caffeine in the form of tea or coffee. So just a large glass of water to rehydrate yourself. So water and breakfast is a great way to start your day. By all means have the caffeine. I'm English, we absolutely love tea. So sticking with the water, we need to be trying to drink 2 to 3 litres per day if possible. If you do need something to flavour it, then use it. Ideally something like fruit, just something natural, but if it's the choice of you drinking water with, say for example, a low fat, no added sugar, as natural as possible squash, and not drinking any water, then drink the water with what you need to. If you've watched the previous videos and you watch me on Facebook and Instagram, you'll know I'm all about making small manageable changes. If we go into your cupboards and start to rip everything apart, give you a diet you're not going to like, you might stick to it for 2 or 3 days, but it's not going to be sustainable for you because you're not going to enjoy it. Some of the obvious ones, or well, maybe I say they're obvious, is just try and limit or reduce your caffeine and alcohol. So if I have somebody who comes to me, I love coffee, and the milky coffee lattes, all the bad stuff. So for me to have maybe gone in my old career when I was driving around the country each day, and it was really easy for me to pick a latte up, of having maybe 4 or 5 of those a day sometimes, to nothing, I just wouldn't have done it. So I cut down to 2 and then started doing it like that and making small manageable changes. So just make small manageable changes first. You've got a much higher chance of sticking at something if you do it like that. If you just cut everything out of your life you enjoy and go cold turkey, you're not going to have much fun, so you're not going to stick at anything. So we're going to talk about some foods in more detail and what they can do for you. So mainly foods that I recommend to people, but we will have a couple that I tell people to avoid as well. So really high up on the list is seaweed. And as I'm reading a lot of these, people will generally tend to say, okay, yeah, well I know that's good, okay, you know it's a good food, but what does it actually do for ovulation or eggs or our body that's linked to ovulation? So that again is going back to tip 1 and 2 and chapter 1 and 2 that we're creating. We need to know why and what. So why do we need to eat it, and what's it going to do for us? What's the benefits? So seaweed is really good for our overall health, and that's for our liver, our kidneys, our bladder, and they are all linked to our reproductive system. Salmon is a really good one. And again, a lot of people will say, I know it's really good because it's an oily fish, it's high in omega-3. What a lot of people don't know is that it can help and really boost the blood flow to our reproductive system. And that's really good because that's a really good way to help anybody. So anyone who's got any diagnosis, if you have got a diagnosis or if you are in the unexplained category, so that's a really good one to be able to help everyone. Figs, I've got to be honest, I'm not a particular fan, but they have a crazy amount of iron in them, and they really boost our ovulation levels and also the quality of the eggs. So oysters, now oysters are often like marketed and known as like, they get the libido going and all of that fun side of it, but what a lot of people don't know about oysters is they've got a really high level of zinc. And zinc helps boost our ovulation and also improve the quality of the egg that we are producing. One of the really easy ones to include in our diet, because most people like something, is berries. So it can be anything: strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, anything. So any berry, and that isn't a food that will help with naturally producing ovulation or increasing it, but what that does do is the eggs that we are producing, it helps protect them. So it's almost like a bit of a barrier, like a bit of a shield, and it helps us to protect those eggs from damage. Another really easy one to include is beans, and that's any kind. Most people know that obviously they're completely full of protein, they're a really good source, they keep us fuller for longer, which is really good. But what beans can do for us with regards to fertility is if we are producing an egg, for example, but the quality isn't the greatest or it's not to the level that we need it to be, beans can help with that. So they'll help us produce the egg still, but they'll also improve the quality of that egg. Another really easy one is leafy greens. So that can be anything. So it can be spinach, kale, broccoli, lettuce, anything, any leafy greens. So there's a lot. You generally like something, and they're really, really high in vitamin B, and that helps again with ovulation levels. Maca root, now it's not always one that people like and can include, but if you can, it's really good for male infertility. It's great for females as well, but it's one of the ones I generally tend to recommend for couples that are struggling with male infertility. It's a really, really good boost for men, and between men and women, it's a really good immune boost for our immune system. So that's just a few foods that I generally tend to recommend, and I try and make it foods that are food groups. So for example, your berries, most people will like strawberries or blackberries or blueberries. I'm trying not to make it too specific where somebody thinks, oh well, I don't like that, so that just can't work. Or for example, leafy greens, most people will like something within that food group. So lots and lots of different fruits and vegetables, and as we discussed yesterday, and if you haven't watched that, please go and watch that, variety is key. So not only varieties for what we're eating, so don't eat, if you like broccoli and cauliflower for example, don't eat it every day, because by day 6 or 7 you'll be bored of it. Introduce as many different things as you want, and also have the variety in the way that you cook them. So boil them, saute them, roast them, put them in soups, in stews, whatever you need to do. So just really try and increase what you're including, and with the variety, just change how you're including them in things. So a couple of foods to avoid, and this is going to be all the stuff that we probably know and love. So sugar. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit more about why. So any refined sugar that we have, so in all the nice things, you know, the cakes and the pastries and all of that, but it can cause, in some cases, quite a severe blood spike. And that can have quite a negative impact on our immune system as well, but also on our ovulation system, especially for women. So saturated fat. So when I'm on about natural fats and healthy fats, there are some healthy fats out there, and if you are going to have something that's low fat or no fat, but it's absolutely full to the brim of additives and sweeteners and artificial colourings, artificial flavours, you're better off to have the healthier fat, have the full fat version, because at least you know what's in that. And that's something that people take a while to get their head around, because they're like, okay Charlotte, so you're telling me I can have the full fat version of that? And I'm like, yeah, because you wouldn't be any better off having the one that's got no fat in, but it's full to the brim of all these nasty things. So with saturated fat, it can cause a spike and an increase in estrogen levels, and if you've got high estrogen levels, that can cause infertility and affect your fertility. And I've put this one on here because it's one of the ones again that is marketed as very healthy, and it can be. So soy milk, however you would include it, it can be really healthy, and I've got quite a few people who drink it, me being one of them, because I'm really, really sensitive with dairy, especially milk. So just be careful with soy, because it's marketed as really healthy, and there are a lot of health benefits of it, but it's got the same ingredients as the saturated fat in a lot of cases, so it can cause the estrogen levels to increase again. So just be careful with that. So a lot of that is quite common sense, you know, it's quite clear, but hopefully it gives a little bit of an explanation of why and what it can cause. So avoid caffeine as much as possible, alcohol, things like your sugar, like sugary drinks, fizzy drinks like cola, lemonade, you know, the fizzy orange, things like that. And the ones that have no sugar in, start to read some of the labels about what they do have in them, so what does give them the taste. And like I say, none of these is me saying, right, go and throw everything out of your cupboards, everything out of your fridge, you've got to only drink water and eat cabbage all week, because that's not sustainable, it's not manageable, you're not going to stick to it, you're going to resent it. And if you watch me, you'll know I'm all about cycles and all about the wheel. So you'll fall into a wheel of, okay, you might do it for a week because you really want to make the change, or you want to lose weight, you want to increase your chances of getting pregnant, but you're going to get bored. You are going to get bored. So that's why I tell you to really have a look at as many fruit and vegetables as you can. Look at the different ways to include them in your diet, different ways to cook them, different ways to put them into different things. So if you don't do that, you're going to get bored. You're going to get bored of the food, you're going to get fed up of cooking, so you're going to then go to the next step, which is you're going to binge. So you may binge on something sweet, you may binge on takeaway, then you've got no energy, so come to the next day, you've got no energy, so you certainly don't want to stand and cook and chop and prepare all of this food, so you order another takeaway, and then you think, okay, well, it's Friday, we might as well have a weekend off, we'll start on Monday. But Monday comes and you feel dreadful because you've had 3 or 4 days of this now, you've got no energy, you're not bothered anymore, and before you know it, you're on this cycle again, you're tired, you've got no energy, you're not sleeping properly, your body's not getting all of the things it needs. And I've been there, done it loads of times, and I think, oh, I'll start again Monday, I'll start again Monday, I'll start again Monday. So really have a look at what you can do, make some small changes. If you normally have 5 cups of coffee a day, try and have 2 or 3. When you get to 2 or 3, go and have 1. If you normally have 6 glasses of wine a week, try and go to 3, then go to 2, then 1. Make small manageable changes. If you have 3 takeaways a week, try and go down to 1 a week. And just do it like that, because you're much more likely to stick to it, and you're much more likely to enjoy the process along the way and not resent it, because as soon as you start to resent it, you're going to fall into this loop. So I hope that makes sense. So if you haven't watched tip number 1, 2 and 3, go and watch those, then come back and watch tip number 4. I am going to be doing 10 top tips, so please subscribe, please like, and then you'll get notified of when we're doing all of the other ones. There will be lots of other things as well. If you're not on my Facebook and Instagram, please head over to there. So on Facebook, I'm the Fertility Coach. On Instagram, I'm Fertility Coach UK. And just to recap, I'm Charlotte, I'm the fertility coach, I'm in the UK, work with people all over the world, everything I do is online, and I do fertility coaching, fertility diet, hypnotherapy, and also fertility Reiki. So if there's anything that you want to know more about, then just comment, but please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for my 5th top tip.